Absolutely. They weren't scared to say no, not at all. The title of our message tonight is I Will Not Bow. And I think that's one of the largest lessons that we can really begin to take from Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's life. But first, I want to start by kind of painting a picture. Now, Israel and Judah are in exile right now. Because of their rebellion against God, God had given them over to the empire of Babylon, right? They conquered them. Now, what's interesting is that Nebuchadnezzar went through the city and he took who he thought was the best and the brightest out of Judah. And if we look in the opening chapter of Daniel, it says this: the king commanded Ashpenaz, the chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both the royal family and of nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance and skillful in all wisdom, endowed in knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and the language of the Chaldeans. So the Chaldeans were kind of, let's say, the language of the Chaldeans was kind of like English in our world today. The vast majority of people in the world that want to conduct business, they speak English. In the world of the Chaldeans, for their classic literature, it was kind of the same way. It's like if you wanted to read the really, really important big books, you had to know how to read and speak Chaldean. So the king assigned them a daily portion of food that the king ate, and of the wine that he drank, and they were to be educated for 3 years to stand before the king. How old do you think these guys were at this time? Yes. Not at all. Yes. Correct. They were teenagers. Yeah. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, were all in their teens. They were anywhere from 13 to 15 years old when this took place, when they were taken into captivity. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, and Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. Now, I was listening to a sermon by John Lennox. Does anybody know who John Lennox is in here? John Lennox is a super famous mathematician from Oxford. He tells a story of when he was wanting to become a doctoral professor one day. He attended a lecture of a famous scientist, and he was able to sit beside this Nobel Prize-winning scientist at a dinner one day. And it came about that somebody's asking John Lennox a question, and he professed to be a Christian. Well, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist said, "Come to my room after this dinner is over." So it could have been, John was like, this could be a really cool thing. Like, he may be coming to congratulate me on my faith. He might be a Christian too. But it was the opposite. You see, this physicist, this Nobel Prize-winning physicist, took him into his room with 5 of his other professors. And he said, John, you're bright. You have a great mind. But if you want to make it in this world, renounce God here and now in front of me and his other professors, so that we know that you are serious about the sciences. And John Lennox thought about it for a minute, and he said, God has given me far more and can offer me far more than you or your science can. I choose him. In his life, he had a Daniel moment. But these Hebrew boys were about to begin to have theirs. Picture with me, if you will, it's your first day at a new high school or a first day at a new middle school. You're there and you don't want to be. And you have a homeroom teacher who comes in and says, you know what? I don't like how you're named. I think your name is stupid. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to change it. That's exactly what happened in this situation. John Lennox also pointed this out, and I've never thought about this before I listened to John's lecture on Daniel. So you're in your homeroom class, and let's say another student from your new school comes up. Let's say his name is Nabul, which in Babylonian means the moon god, or son of the moon god, right? So he goes up to Daniel, and he says, Daniel, I hear that you're new here. Tell me, what does your name mean? And Daniel says, well, my name means God is my judge. And Nabul says, oh, well, that's fitting. Seems as how your God judged you weaker than us. That's why we conquered you. Such a sad name to have. And then he asked Hananiah, what does your name mean? And he says, my God is gracious. And Nabal laughs again, and he's like, no wonder. God is gracious? Of course. He's so gracious, he brought you to us. We're the Babylonians. We're the best thing that's ever been and ever will be. And he says, Mishael, what does your name mean? And he says, who is like God? He's like, interesting point. And lastly, he goes to Azariah and he says, well, what does your name mean? He goes, Jehovah is my helper. He's like, wait. So one of you serves a God that is a judge, the judge God. One of you serves a God that is the God of grace. And one of you serves a God that is a helper God. And like, no. Our God is just. Our God helps us. And our God is gracious. And he's like, that can't be. Because we have a God of the moon. We have a God of the sun. We have a God of the river. We have a God above gods. We have all of these different deities. We have all these different names. I'm named after the moon, is what he says. He's like, you can't tell me that your God is not just about justice and grace, and he helps you, right? Like, no, that's it. So Nabal is confused. So he calls the homeroom teacher over, and he goes like, hey, teacher, come over here. So the homeroom teacher comes over, and Nabal tells him, he's like, these kids are confused. They're at a new high school. They don't know anything yet. He's saying that they're named after a God, a helper God, a grace God, and a justice God. But he says they're all the same. And homeroom teacher says, okay, let's clear up the confusion. And in spite, he begins to name them names of opposites of what they were named as children. Instead of Daniel saying, God is my judge, he names him Belteshazzar, which means, O wife of the god Baal, protect my king. He names him after a foreign god and asks the wife of a foreign god to protect this idolatrous king, Nebuchadnezzar. To Shadrach, to Hananiah, whose name means God is gracious, he says, no, you will be Shadrach, meaning I am fearful of the moon god. To Mishael, whose name means who is like God, he says, you're going to be Meshach, meaning I am nothing, or I am of little account. And Azariah, whose name means God is my helper, he said, you're going to be named Abednego, meaning I am a servant of the Shining One, which is Baal. So the homeroom teacher comes up and says, okay, I've given you new identities to match the culture you live in, so now you won't stand out. These are your names permanently as you are here in this new school. And if you're going to do well, you have to live with these new names. How would you feel if somebody came in and told you they didn't like you, they didn't like your name, they don't like how you look, and they said they're going to change it to make you in their image? How does that make you feel? What would that make you feel like? Yeah, bad, right? Like if somebody came in and said, you know what, I don't like Stella. I'm gonna call you something completely different. How would it make you feel if somebody said, I don't like your name? You what? No, you'd probably say... Of course, if it was you, you'd probably say, no, I am the queen. You cannot change my name. Can't you be mad? What would you do? What would you be mad? Like, what would you tell him? You're like, you're not changing my name. What would you say? All right, Mia. You would change their name? You're like, yo, Uno reversal card, I'm going to change your name. Your name is trash. Yeah. All right, Reese, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's crazy how, we now know them all by their given name and not their, original.
Yeah.
It's you'd always hear, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, never their original names. I can't even remember them to tell you.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. What's up, Landon? Yeah, you tell him, I don't like your name either. Your name sounds dumb. Yeah. But see, here's the thing. Peer pressure is something that you're all going to face, that you all already face. That's what was happening here. These guys were brought into an entirely new culture. An entirely new culture where they said this, like, you can't worship your God because your God's been conquered by us. A king that says you must worship me instead of worshiping your God. You have to adopt our religious practices. You have to speak our language. You have to dress like us, talk like us, eat like us. You have to do everything that we do to fit in. Have any of you experienced kind of a situation like that where you go somewhere new and they're like, "Hey, you got to do what you got to do what we do to fit in"? Have any of you experienced anything like that before? Okay, Kent, like what? Okay. All right, anybody else? Yes, Landon.
I think one that stuck out to me was, it's going to sound weird with the airsoft thing, but if you walk on there with like this cheap gun, you're going to get laughed at. And people are going to be like, what are you doing?
Right.
And it's like you have to spend money, you have to wear the gear that a lot of pretty much everyone wears. So that was one. It's also really cool.
Yeah. All right, Reese, what's up?
I feel like in a 20, there's this big idea of like being overachiever. So it's like if you're not in all the sports and the clubs and the good grades and everything, it's like you're kind of like made fun of. And so if you don't have all A's, it's like, oh, what's with that 189? And you get
Yeah.
made fun for it. So just kind of a pressure to overachieve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I was in high school, there was very much this thing of, especially like clothes, right? So growing up, my family didn't have a whole lot of money, but we had clothes, we had food on the table and everything. But it wasn't something where we could go to the store and get brand new, like, for us, it was like Abercrombie and Fitch or Hollister or American Eagle. Like, if you wore the right clothes, you fit in with the right group of people in your high school. It's pretty much still like that today, though, isn't it? Especially in public school. It's like, yeah, Nike, right? Like, all of us as country folks, if you had a Carhartt jacket and Levi's jeans and a set of boots, you could hang out with them. You could social chameleon your way through high school, right? Like, if I want to hang out with my preppy kids, I'd throw my Letterman jacket, my varsity Letterman jacket, and I could be accepted almost anywhere in the school except for drama club because none of them liked football players. But if I wanted to go to drama club, I would dress up like I was in Footloose for the production of the year, and then I could go backstage. Everybody's like, "Oh, hey, oh my gosh, we're so happy you're here." But the thing is, right, you can try to chameleon yourself by talking certain ways, by dressing certain ways, to get in with certain groups. But the question is, are you simply being a chameleon, or are you being true to who God made you to be? Like, are you willing to dress as you know you should? Are you willing to talk as you know you should? For me, I remember sitting in the football locker room and cussing my head off one day, and a kid that I don't even think was saved looked at me and he said, "Preacher man, you suck at cussing. Shut up." I felt like a hamster. I felt so small and weak and cowardly when this dude, who I don't even know if he knew Jesus, looked at me, recognized my faith, and said, "Preacher, you suck at cussing. Stop doing it." I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like the big kids. I wanted to be like the seniors and talk how they did and do stuff like they did. But I knew what was right, and I chose not to do it. Now, what's interesting is in the story of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they get into a similar type of trouble, except they are refusing to bow to the culture. So Nebuchadnezzar, did any of you watch VeggieTales' version of Nebuchadnezzar? Yes. Yeah, y'all are like, let's go. So King Nebuchadnezzar, he makes an image of gold. It's a 90-foot tall, can you imagine a 90-foot tall idol made of solid gold? Like 9 stories, a building, a flippin' building-sized gold idol. And he set it up on the plain of Dura. Basically, he set it up somewhere where everybody could see it. And he said, "Gather all the wise men, the prefects, the governors, the counselors. Grab everybody who means something in the kingdom. And we're going to dedicate this image to worship me." So they all come together, and they all get up, and they say, "Oh, King Nebuchadnezzar, you are wise and you are powerful. We will worship you." And the herald proclaimed to everybody who was out there at that time, said, "You're commanded, O peoples, O nations, and languages, When you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of... I would love to hear a bagpipe in ancient Babylon. I know it's not the same thing, but can you imagine a Scottish Babylonian? Hey, Nebuchadnezzar, I've got a bagpipe for you. I would love to see a wily Scotsman scream at Nebuchadnezzar. Sadly, those are too far removed in history to happen, but it would be great. And they're to fall down and worship the golden image that the king had set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Now, as far as like punishments go, that's probably one of the cruelest ways that I've ever heard of. Yeah, besides crucifixion, that's one of the worst. Yes, Kent, you've had your hand up. What's up? Yeah. The pressure to fit in is a big deal. Do you feel like, when it comes to being at school, do you feel like you have a place that you fit in? Do you feel like you have a place that you feel like you're surrounded by actual friends and not just people who might or might not like you? Yeah, that's good if you have that. It's always good to have a friend group that you know you can love and you can trust, and that's why I hope, especially here, that you find that here. So going back into the sermon part of this, so they declare, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, may you live forever." And at that time, the Chaldeans come forward and they're accusing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're accusing the Jewish people of saying, "You're not bowing." Well, of course they wouldn't. They're Jewish. There is only one God under heaven. His name is Yahweh. It's not Nebuchadnezzar. It's not Baal. It's not Marduk. It's not anybody else. Do you need to throw your Coke away? Solid. You should go do that. All right. So they said, "You, king, have made a decree that every man who hears all of these instruments shall fall down and worship the golden image, and whoever does not fall and worship shall be cast into a fiery furnace." Now, what's interesting is that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have proven themselves to the king to be wise, to be men of renown, to be men of learning in the court of the king. So these are people that the king would have counted on. Earlier in Daniel chapter 2 was when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and none of his wise men could interpret it. All these people that he paid to keep around that served other gods, that said, "Oh, we can tell you what your dream meant," none of them could tell the king what the dream meant. And what was cool is Nebuchadnezzar said, "You know what, guys? I'm actually not even going to tell you the dream, and I want you to interpret it for me." And all these wise men who supposedly served these other gods came back to him and said, "No, Nebuchadnezzar, it is impossible for us to tell you the dream. It is only in the realm of the gods that this is known." But you know who could? Daniel. Because Daniel prayed to God and he said, "If you would give me the interpretation of this dream and show yourself faithful, Lord, I will go and speak." So God shows Daniel the dream. He goes, he interprets it, and Daniel gets promoted to a position where he's ruling over a huge chunk of Babylon. So Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah all have positions of authority in the kingdom of Babylon. So when they don't bow down, Nebuchadnezzar is furious. He's like, "You're members of my court. You are part of my crew, my innermost group of people. And you're not bowing to me?" 7 times as hot. Make the furnace 7 times as hot and then see what happens. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, they were about 13 or 14 probably when they were brought to Babylon. They were educated for 3 years. So they could have been 16 through 19 years old. I know! A lot of times people put Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego with beards. Now, to be fair, they probably ate a lot more meat, so they had facial hair, like they're 19 and they got a whole beard thing going on. They look like they're 30, but they're not. Listen, if I shave this beard off, I turn into like an 18-year-old. Like I have to keep the beard. No, I am not. No, at this point in my life, if I shave my beard, there is a tan line that exists right through here. But yeah, a lot of people think like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like, oh, they've lived long lives. This is not a big deal. They've had their time. No, they were in their late teens when they were when they were going to get thrown into a fiery furnace. So it was a big deal for them to stand up to an entire culture. Now, for those of you who I taught at Sardis, y'all know that when an ancient world leader does this, he thinks that he's a god in human form. Nebuchadnezzar truly thinks, like, I am a god in flesh, and I'm worthy of worship. So these kids are not just saying no to a president. They're not just saying no to a pope. They're not just saying no to a mayor. They're saying no to someone who believes he's an actual god in human form. So this is a big, big, big deal. So they say no. We will not bow. As members of your court, as especially Jewish believers in Yahweh, we will not bow. So Nebuchadnezzar, furious with rage, commanded that they be brought before the king. And he says, is it true that you do not serve my gods or me or worship the golden image that I have set up? And when you hear all these instruments, you're not falling down and worshiping the image that I made. But if you don't worship, you will immediately be cast into the fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands? Now what's funny is that he just forgot that the God of Daniel told him his dream and interpreted it. The same God that Daniel serves is the same God of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. But Nebuchadnezzar forgets this. And he said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace, and he'll deliver us out of your hand. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you've set up. And Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and he heated the furnace 7 times more hot than normal. These men were bound in their cloaks. They were tied up in their tunics, their hats, their garments, and they were thrown into the fiery furnace. And he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind them and cast them in the furnace. But because the king's order was so urgent and the furnace was so hot, the flame of the fire killed the men who even took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and threw them in. Now that's crazy, right? Like, he made it so hot that it even killed the people who threw them in. Then the king was astonished. This is one of my favorite portions in Scripture. I could preach for 5 hours on this, and I'm not going to, because you will all be asleep and your parents are going to be wondering what the heck is going on in there if I do this. So we're going to keep it short. King Nebuchadnezzar was astounded, and he rose up in haste. He got up quickly, and he said, did we not cast 3 men into the fire? And they answered, King, yeah, you're right. We only threw 3 in. And he answered and said, but I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. Yes, Landon. Yes, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were the ones that were specifically featured in this story for that. Y'all, even in the midst of peer pressure from a literal man who believed himself to be a god, from an entire culture of people that said, we will bow when we hear the music, these 3 boys said, no, we will not. We know what is good, we know what is right, and we know what is true. And we choose our God over all of this, and he will deliver us. When you go to school, when you are walking the halls of your school, when you're in class, when you're out in public, when you're on the football, baseball, soccer field, wherever you're at, you're going to encounter peer pressure. You're going to encounter people saying, you do this my way, or you're not going to be popular. You need to dress like this, or else you're not going to fit in. You're going to talk like us, you're not going to fit in. I literally had somebody in my high school tell me, I don't like your name, so I'm going to rename you. And for some reason, they tried to call me Joey. No offense. Your brother's great. But I...
We love Joey. We love Joey.
But seriously, I don't know what was up with this one. I actually had a girl in my high school in some weird redneck way. I think she liked me. And this is one of my rules for you dudes out there. Don't date redneck women. Just leave it alone. Run away. It's not worth it. You'll buy them, a big jacked up Chevy F-250 with pink neons under, and then they'll divorce you because they got their truck out of it and they'll leave you. That's every country song I've ever heard recently. But seriously, this girl one time, she was like, I don't like you. I think I'm going to make you my dog. I'm going to put a collar on. And I was like, woman, do you have any idea who you speak to? Like, I was sitting there like, no, this is not happening. I did not have somebody just tell me they don't like me and they're going to make me their dog. Like, this is insane. Like, people, people say and do things that are strange, but they'll also say and do things to you to make you fit what they believe is right. So one of my questions to y'all tonight is this. What do you think is right? What is good? What is right? What is true? When you think of what is good, what do you think of? Oh, Sawyer, yeah. When I say what is something good, what do you think of? Jesus is a solid answer here. Lily, if I ask you what is good, what is right, and what is true, what do you think about? Yes, absolutely. So with your catechisms, what is good, what is right, and what is true? We think of God, we think of His law, we think of His love, we think of His grace and His mercy. All of these things that help us understand who He is and how He loves us. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, no, we're not going to bow because we know who our God is. And when they are tossed into the fire, King Nebuchadnezzar, one of the most powerful men on the face of the planet at any time in history, says, I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the fourth is like a son of the gods. He sees Jesus walking around with these 3. Jesus shows up in the midst of the furnace, in the midst of your peer pressure, in the midst of a coach that says, you're going to do it my way even if it's wrong. And you say, no, I'm going to do what's right. Jesus is going to show up. My brother has a story that's just like that. That's like this with a football coach. One of my football coaches in high school would cuss him out on the field, literally telling him, you're terrible. Why are you even on my field? My brother calls him into his office. Now, this man fancied himself the greatest coach in the nation, and he wasn't. My brother calls himself into his office, into coach's office, puts his gear on the coach's desk and says, sir, we need to talk. I don't appreciate the way that you speak to me. I'm a Christian, and I will not be cussed at. I don't appreciate the way that you tell me that I'm not good enough to be here. I'm trying my best. I don't appreciate you using that language towards me when I've never used that towards you. I don't think it's good for you as a coach to act like that when you want people to follow you. And so I'm putting my gear on your desk, and I'm telling you you're not worth playing for. I have never seen a man madder in my life. You could hear that man screaming outside the field house at my brother as he left. But you know what my brother did? He went out and he concentrated on wrestling, which was his other sport in high school. And he went to state, I think, twice in wrestling. Because he chose what was right and what is good. And ironically, as my brother walked out of the football locker room, he said, I'm going to go to state and you'll never see a ring. And for those of you who play high school football, you know how important that state championship ring is. Once again, I've never heard a man scream louder at a child than that football coach who fancied himself a god in human form yelled at my brother. But my brother did go to state, and he did wonderful. My brother stood up to what was right, what is good, and what is true. As we go about the rest of our year, as you go through school, as you're out in public, when you're on your sports teams, remember, peer pressure is going to happen. People will try to make you bow to anything they find better than Jesus. We only bow the knee to God as Christians. That's it. So we're going to pray. We're going to break up into our high school and middle school small groups, and we're going to end our night. Dear Jesus, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you've done for us. Lord, thank you that you are with us in the midst of the fiery furnace of peer pressure, of stress, of anxiety, of depression, of whatever we're going through. When we call on your name, we know that you are there with us. And in many cases, it'll make everybody else take notice that there is somebody else with them in the fire. And Jesus, we praise you for being with us in the fire. Lord, we love you and we thank you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.